Topless with the blue ERA is alongside. The 5-second board is shown. The flag is dropped. We are racing. And a good start made then from the front of the grid by David Morris, but is it good enough? Great start by Mark Gillies, looking at the green ERA, carving his way up through the traffic, but it's going to be David Morris that leads. Works sideways, a bit of contact there. That was Nick Topless getting into the side of Tom Dock. Suddenly there, Sam, the car seemed to snap away from him.
Yeah, I think Topless got a little bit loose with an inside front tyre on the grass, as we see a big tank slapper there for Ian Baxter, getting it all wrong out of Matwick.
Lucky not to get collected, lucky that he didn't dig in. Big spin on the opening lap of the race there. So Ian Baxter goes lawn mowing. Hopefully he'll get back on. But look at the way that Mark Gillies is going already then, up from the 5th row of the grid. And he's, what, 4th as the cars work their way now up towards the first element of St Mary's then. This Goodwood Trophy already producing drama. If Ian Baxter can get off the grass and chase after them, let's see what he can do. But up front, David Morris is building up a big gap already.
And that's exactly what he would have wanted, because now he can concentrate on the ideal line. No defensive manoeuvres required. He can optimise this opening lap, try to build that cushion, meanwhile allow everybody behind him to squabble over one another, which will peg back their speed ever so slightly, allowing Morris to build his lead.
So down they come, Lanham Straight then, for the first time of 20 minutes of racing. Tom Dark is in 2nd place despite that scare on the first lap. 3rd there, you've got Nick Topless, Mark Gillies is 4th, and Gary Pearson then getting into the swing of racing. The ERA is in 5th place as he comes now up towards the chicane. Now, while this battle pack develops for 2nd place, so the race leader, David Morris, is getting away up front. Can they start to narrow the advantage then as they come up towards the end of lap 1? Morris goes through on his own, small gap back. 2nd look, it is Tom Dark in the Bugatti, and he's got Nick Topless right up behind him. 4th is Mark Gillies, and there Gary Pearson. Either something has broken or that was a very bumpy section he found.
Yeah, that looked like a huge amount of vibration on the left rear of Remus for Gary Pearson. As we take a replay of the start, you can just see Gillies and the pale grey car in the background, 2 left wheels on the grass. Yes, and it was a little lock-up, I think, there from Topless, which wrong-footed him. Very innocent manoeuvre, but that pushed his car ever so slightly out wide into that adjacent, and that was where the contact was made.
And that was the moment that befell Ian Baxter. I mean, that was a big slide. Thankfully, he was out of everybody's way, but of course, heading towards the grass. Thankfully, the car stayed the right way up. Now, at the end of the opening lap, David Morris was over 2 seconds clear of Tom Dark. They're going through number 33, Mark Gillies. They go through that corner. Gary Pearson leading out of the side, chasing after him. And the cars now sprint their way once again down towards the approach to Woodcote at the end of Lanham Straight. Now, is there a chance for Dark, Topless, Gillies, Pearson to come back at the race leader? Let's see. There are good battles lower down. Julian Wilton here is coming under attack as well, because there you've got Michael Birch with the 4CM Maserati right up behind him. But David Morris is doing a great job up front, isn't he? He's built that gap early on. Duncan Pitaway losing places there. The Bugatti drops back in a straight line.
Just a little wave of the hand there to let the car behind know that the door is open. Best to get that clarified early on before it ends up becoming a muddle in the braking zone.
David Morris driving off into the distance. He's 3 seconds clear now. This battle is going on for 2nd place. Mark Gillies, interestingly, has got a bit stuck, hasn't he, after that really impressive charge off the line through that first lap. Now he can't yet find a way past Nick Topless, and you get the feeling that were he to get through, he might be able to make more progress. Heading now through Ford Water, looks to the inside line, but again Nick Topless fends him off. There is a gap. Is Mark Gillies brave enough to go for it, approaching the first part of St Mary's, the right-handed element? Yes, he is, through for 3rd place. That was a good move.
That was a great move. I was going to say it takes a brave man to go up the inside of Ford Water. He didn't pull that off, but it takes an even braver man to stick it up the inside at the last second into No Name, which he did very gracefully as they make their way down into Lavin. Now the move completed. Gillies looking racy from the start, having had a slightly untidy getaway off the line, a bit of grass tracking, now finding his feet.
And now comes up to have a go at Tom Dark, so if he can get through the traffic, there's still time left in the race for him to then go after the race leader. Let's see, does he make the move coming down towards Woodcote this time? It's the ERA in the lead of David Morris still. 2nd is Tom Dark in this very rare 1945 Bugatti Type 73C, made up of original parts, and Mark Gillies crawling all over the back of him then in the green ERA. Couldn't find a way by coming into Woodcote. David Morris, perhaps in blissful ignorance of what's going on behind, is self-isolating at the front. He's way out clear on his own, but that could all change before the end of the next 15 minutes, because Gillies is a man on a mission.
He is, but Tom Dark is defending beautifully and ever so subtly, as we just saw down into the final couple of corners of the previous lap, managed to keep Gillies behind him. Now we've got the long run out of Madgwick up towards Fordwater, where Gillies was looking so racy just a lap ago, now looking racy again. Can he get alongside? You must have the front of the car parallel with that of the car you're trying to overtake, otherwise they won't see you, they might turn in on you. Can he do it now? Into no name, yes, same move repeated. Gillies through.
Gillies then up into second place then now, coming through Lavant. Oh, he will in a moment rather. He's got past Tom Dark, he's going after the leading ERA. So the two cars then now, first and second, both ERAs. One, remember, starting from pole, one is up from 11th on the grid. The way that Mark Gillies is going suggests that he will bring the gap down, but will he bring it down enough to be able to have a go before the end of the race? He's got 14 minutes in which to do this. Now, Mark Gillies on this lap alone has done the fastest of anybody within the first sector. David Morris has done the fastest lap of the race. It's game on between those two.
Yeah, very much so, and as the field fans out, each car manages to find just a little bit of personal space. We're seeing the lap times settle down, we're seeing the sector times speeding up, the timing screens in front of us flashing up purple. Currently we've got the pace being set by the race leader at 35.3, but look out for Gillies in third, his last lap at 35.9, but remember he was in the midst of a battle for position which will have cost him that half second or so. Gillies might yet have the pace to close the gap on the race lead.
So race leaders through, and Mark Gillies has now done the fastest lap of the race. The gap is 3.7 seconds, so he's still got work to do, but he is a little quicker, a little closer to Morris, the race leader. Tom Dark hanging on to third ahead of Nick Topless fourth. Fifth, it is number 32, which is James Baxter, and then in sixth place, Gary Pearson, the back of this little queue, as the cars now make the run through Fordwater, heading towards the first element of St Mary's, the right-handed part before the left-hand corner itself. And you can see the way that Nick Topless now is determined to find a way through, but suddenly he is under attack, isn't he? Because out of nowhere, the little Riley TT Sprite arrives on the scene. James Baxter has caught up with the ERA. He's dragged Gary Pearson along for company, and now they are queued up there looking for a way past Nick Topless as Pearson looks to the inside line, can't find a way past the Riley. Great battle, this.
It really is, and of course this is great for the guys up ahead, not least of which Gillies, because his pace is a good half second or more faster than that of our race leader Morris.
So as the fight for third place comes down towards Woodcote, now Nick Topless trying to get back ahead of Tom Dark, but look at the way that James Baxter is going. The little Riley on the inside line, they're looking much, much lower. He's going to get up the inside of one. He might get past two here if he's really, really brave. Up the inside of the ERA. On the outside line, though, Nick Topless stands his ground, comes out of the corner ahead. He's on the outside line into the chicane. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? It is Nick Topless then. He hangs on to fourth place in the blue ERA, and there the Riley tucked up behind with Gary Pearson holding this watching brief in sixth place as they come over the line. But James Baxter really hustling that car now.
Yeah, lovely driving by all of them. Very, very good awareness from Topless in particular, leaving just the car's width as they went into Woodcote and then into the chicane, giving all of them just the space that they needed to not make contact.
Now, Mark Gillies is absolutely flying. He's taken about a second and a half out of David Morris's lead gap. So now that he's got through the traffic, the gap has gone from 3.6 to down to 2 seconds. So he could well be on for a lead change as James Baxter comes up to have another go on the inside, and he goes through this time. The Riley goes ahead of the ERA. James Baxter through at the first part of St Mary's, gets up ahead of Nick Topless, and straight away is on the back of Tom Dark there, is he not, in the Bugatti. Great drive this by James Baxter. Look, now to the inside approaching Lavant. That's really brave. He brakes desperately, desperately late. Can't quite do it.
Can't quite do it, and actually Topless was caught a little bit unawares as they went into no name there. Car coming up the inside just as he turned in. He had to turn out of the corner, got it wide onto the marbles and just gathered it up before they turned into St Mary's.
So here is James Baxter, job done now. Look, that was on Lavant straight, came out of the right-hander itself, went through, took the advantage. Now, ahead of all of this, don't forget, we've got the lead battle. Here it is. Into the chicane they come, nose to tail. Up towards the timing line they come, and nose to tail. It is the silver ERA of David Morris just ahead. 2 seconds was the margin. It's nothing at all now as they go over the timing line, and Mark Gillies lines up to make his move on the inside. Job done. I mean, to catch and pass that easily, that's something.
It really was. He made it look effortless, didn't he? So from quite far down the grid, Gillies on an absolute mission now, and I sense that he's going to pull away. Such is his pace advantage. A 32.8 on the previous lap compared with Morris on a 34.2. It's a significant pace advantage from Gillies. A little wave of the hand to say thank you to the back marker just for letting him through unimpeded.
In a sense, it was a good job Mark Gillies had a problem in qualifying, because had he started from pole, he'd have already finished the race possibly. So far ahead would he be. So out of the St Mary's sequence they come up towards Lavant. Now, of course, he's got the back markers to worry about. Now, of course, driving standards are good at Goodwood, but when you're the race leader, there's always presumably that little moment of hesitation. Has he seen me? Do I commit or not?
Yes, exactly like this that we're seeing unfolding. He just gets a little bit wrong-footed. He will have had to lift out of the throttle there. Meanwhile, Morris behind can pay a watching brief and pick his moment, try to gather momentum, slingshot onto the straight, ready to take advantage of any little interruption that Gillies has as they come down. It's an absolute bravery test, isn't it, between the two of them? Who's later on the brakes into Woodcote?
So Mark Gillies just hanging on to the advantage for now. As you look down from the drone, first time we've used the drone live from Goodwood on television, and up towards the timing line. Now I think Mark Gillies is getting away. He's done the fastest lap, and as they break the timing beam, 0.7 of a second. It doesn't sound like much, but I think Mark Gillies now, until he comes across the next wave of traffic, should be in the box seat.
Gillies seems to have the advantage on power, but I feel that Morris has got a little advantage, certainly on braking.
So we are with just over half the race gone, 8 minutes and change still on the clock. So Mark Gillies leads the way. They're going through in second place is David Morris, and James Baxter is in third, but it's an astonishing gap between the top two, even though they've been battling, and everybody else. But now Mark Gillies looks as though he's able to build that advantage over David Morris. Mark Gillies based in the States, but regular racer, of course, in England. He's British by birth. This is the third place fight in the traffic as well. So Tom Dark trying to wriggle his way past the slower cars.
This is where back markers can really upset the fight as well. Dark trying. Gary Pearson up the inside into Lavant, a wheel on the inside of the apex curve. Fantastic manoeuvre, and he comes out in front of all of them.
Gains 2 places and does the lappery all at the same time. Stunning bit of driving. Great opportunistic move that by Gary Pearson. So that puts him up into 4th place. 5th now is Nick Topless. Down to 6th is going to be Tom Dark, who got well and truly mugged there. James Baxter 3rd. He's away and gone relative to them. But yeah, Gary Pearson, considering he doesn't know Remus that well, he's getting the hang of this ERA pretty quickly now.
A wily fox is Pearson.
Yes,
he just sat back, didn't he? He watched it all unfold in front of him and picked his moment to pounce, squeezing through, catching everybody unawares.
So the car they were lapping was the Parnell and GK3 of Roland Bechstein, the red Parnell car. So the leaders have gone by, 6/10 now the margin, but David Morris has just done the fastest lap of the race. He's not giving up, is he?
But where was that pace earlier on? He needed that 2 laps ago.
Absolutely right, unless he was caught napping a little bit, thinking he had a big gap, and all of a sudden Mark Gillies was with him. Now, for 4th place, Gary Pearson versus Nick Topless. We're not done yet in this ERA feud either. So this is Remus just ahead of R4A, the expat Fairfield car. But Gary Pearson, having made that really bold move to gain 2 places in one, trying to hang on to it. He's too far back from James Baxter. But up front at the moment, it is Mark Gillies leading the way. 6/10 was the margin going onto this lap. 6 more minutes to go.
Well, as long as Morris has mid-32s in him, which he clearly does, then we've got a race on our hands all the way to the flag, because the pace advantage that we thought Gillies had is definitely not the case. As we just watch these cars beautifully controlled on the throttle, little deft inputs of opposite lock. Astonishing to think that these cockpits, those seat belts.
It's a sobering thought, especially when you see the commitment being put in then as now. Here they come then for 4th place. Gary Pearson in Remus versus Nick Topless in R4A behind. Trying to get the car through Woodcote, constantly balancing the traction against the power, and coming now into the chicane. Down from the high shot, they come up towards the timing line once more. The leaders have gone through and the gap is coming down yet further. There it is, 0.3 of a second. Now, is this purely traffic? Again, Mark Gillies is in the back markers, but 2 fastest laps in a row for David Morris. There is Humphrey, the silver ERA They thread their way through the traffic. Mark Gillies is the pioneer here. He is the first man to come across the slower cars. He's got to work out whether to go left or right.
Yeah, very much harder for the leader. He has to punch the hole in the traffic. Makes it very much easier for the challenger behind to follow them straight through. Now, if that was the reason that Morris is a little bit quicker, that would explain everything. But actually what we're seeing is a fundamental match of pace between the two leading cars.
So just look at the commitment put in. That wheel is never still, is it? You're either turning or correcting, or sometimes trying to do both at once. David Morris then in second place. Now the gap has gone up over the lap. He actually lost out a little bit in the back markery. 4.5 are on the clock, 4.5 minutes to go. There is Mark Gillies, who can breathe a sigh of relief for a moment because there's nothing immediately up the road. David Morris presses on. See how exposed the driver is there. Nothing really in terms of side protection.
Mark Gillies will be wishing he had a flank of rally-style headlights to flash at the back markers ahead to get through without interruption.
Comes up to lap Ewan Sergison with the ex-Luigi Villaresi Targa Florio winning Maserati the 6CM and goes through. Here's the ERA fight. It's switched around again, look, because Nick Topless is back ahead of Gary Pearson. Gary has had huge success at Goodwood over the years, at the Revival, at the members' meeting, but has he got a problem because Tom Dark urges the Bugatti up and past him, and Remus there didn't seem to have much of a fight in it.
No, I was looking just a lap ago, and Pearson in Remus seemed to just lack the punch out of the chicane that Topless had, but he's dropping back so far now. I wonder if indeed there is a little bit of a problem for Remus.
We saw that vibration, didn't we, quite near the start of the race, but looked as though Gary was able to drive around that, but certainly he's lost 2 places, and although the commitment is there, he doesn't look like he's nursing the car. Clearly the pace isn't what it was.
Yeah, just dropping a little bit of power, perhaps it's getting a little hot.
So we've got 3 more minutes of the race to run. The lead gap 1.6 seconds now, so the advantage has gone back the way of Mark Gillies. 10 places gained, of course, from where he qualified with the problems in practice. He was in and out of the pit. There is Tom Dark.
And you just saw how Tom Dark, on the way into Lavin there, had to go with his right hand up onto the top of the steering wheel to gather an extra half an armful of lock and a little more leverage as he hauled the car into the apex. You hear the tyres screaming from the leaders on the way into the chicane there through the direction change.
But a great drive this by Mark Gillies. We're not quite done yet. 2.5 minutes still on the clock here. Down towards Madgwick Corner he goes. There is David Morris in second place. Total concentration on his face, of course. The open face helmet and the goggles allowing you to see that. Quick look in the mirror to see what's going on behind. But up front, he knows that that gap is starting to widen a little bit. Last time around, though, believe it or not, he was fractionally faster. So Mark Gillies only has to win by 1,000th of a second to win the race, admittedly, but David Morris has certainly not given up. And here's the next lifeline being thrown his way, because there are a few more back markers up the road, or at least one there to get past at St Mary's.
David Morris does seem to have a slight edge on pace, just a 10th or 2 over Gillies. Of course, the traffic is not giving us a clean and accurate picture on that. Let's instead concentrate on the car length gap between them that we're seeing on our screens right now, and certainly Morris will be praying for a few more back markers to impede Gillies' progress. And up from Gillies, does he have a problem?
He does, I think he does. I'm afraid whatever hit him in qualifying has hit again. David Morris goes through, and Mark Gillies, almost Pearson-esque, still going, but not at the pace that he wants to go. And all of this has happened with just under a lap time left in the race. So unless he pits, Mark Gillies will be able to nurse the car round for one more lap. But something has hit right at the very end, sideways out of Woodcote. He looks down, but he knows he's got a problem now. Does he carry on for a finish? Does he preserve everything and come into the pit lane? He's going to carry on to the end, but real shame. A wag of the finger at the pit crew, so they know there's a problem, and it sounds horrible.
Yeah, it sounds horrible. That's misfiring a lot. So, okay, engine problem rather than chassis problem for Gillies. What a shame, because that was a really tight battle that would definitely have waged right up into the checkered flag.
And you can see now the way that Mark Gillies is moving in the cockpit. He's trying to change things, adjust things, get the car home somehow. Again, it's not a walking pace, but clearly the ultimate performance has gone because of that misfire. Now the question is whether or not he's going to be caught. He was 15 seconds up the road over James Baxter.
There's exactly what I was going to say. There's almost certainly a podium on the cards here if he can just nurse the car to the flag and possibly even maintain second position.
So far, so good. There is David Morris getting himself up through the traffic past the 4.5 litre Talbot Lago of Klaus Lehr.
But got very sideways once he caught sight of Morris coming through the inside apex.
So David Morris doesn't really need to be a hero now. He can just sit there, bring the car to the end. Mark Gillies, cruel luck for him, I'm afraid, with that misfire, but a great battle we had between the ERAs, the back markers waving drivers through. There is Julian Wilton in the ERA R7B. He will just about get another lap out of the race, I suspect, although David Morris right up behind him, checkered flag being made ready. Julian Wilton comes through the chicane. Using that drone cam again, up towards the checkered flag though, and he's going to be a win for David Morris, who accelerates over the line to win the Goodwood Trophy, presented by the Goodwood Supporters Association.